1320 AM KSCR, Eugene Springfield. Info Radio. News, information, and entertainment. 1320 Info Radio. A Cumulus station.
Is the Common Sense Show. Got some quick info for you. Keep a close eye on my website and Rick Dancer's website. We've got some great changes coming up that I'm sure you're all going to like. The Common Sense website is www.bycommonsense.com, and Rick has two websites you're going to want to check out. His media site, which is www.rickdancer.com, and his site for his TV show, which is www.rickdancer.tv.com. Take some time, give those sites a quick view, and look for the changes that will be coming to them in the next few weeks. They'll be nothing short of awesome, totally awesome. Last week, we had discussed that which is evil. Me and Theron were sitting here and trying to wrap our brain around it and get through that, or the concept of evil, and we didn't really get to finish. That kind of sucked. We didn't get to finish. There's simply not enough time in the hour to get through it all. Apparently, there's a lot of things that are evil. We touched on some of the definitions of evil, touched on the questions of if it exists, looked at the morality of evil, if it was biology related, and we established that whether you're a believer or non-believer, people tend to be capable and willing to recognize that which is evil in society. Society will suffer it upon occasion. What we didn't get to delve into is the correlation or unholy relationship that evil has with that which is of the spirit or of the spirit world. Is evil spiritually connected or motivated in some way? So we're going to have to come back to that subject. I had quite a few people tell me they were a bit disappointed that the hour was up, so we'll have to get back to that in the next few weeks, do a recap, and then get into aspects of evil.
It really was a compelling show.
And check it out. Hey, it was good. I had a lot of people say that it was really good.
Yeah, I wish we would have had a lot more time.
We ran out of time. I mean, you told me there's 3 minutes left in the show. I was like, you got to be kidding me. I didn't realize the hour went that fast.
Yeah,
so.
It goes fast.
So that was pretty cool. Let's see. Today we have some special guests. A lady by the name of Blair Adams. She is the president of the Black Student Union out at LCC, Lane Community College. And she has a vice president, gentleman by the name of Jordan. No?
I'm not the vice president.
You're not the vice president. Jordan's not a vice president. Jordan's wish he was. He wished he was a vice president. Anyway, they're here on the show. We're going to be talking about race, racism, and how it affects us as individuals and as a society. So if you have any questions for Blair, Jordan, Theron, or myself during the show, please call in at 541-284-7953. Once again, that number is 541-284-7953. Give us a call. Let us know what you think. I pulled I did a Wikipedia poll on racism, and it goes into how it's defined, different practices, actions of it, how society perceives it. There's a lot more to it than originally anticipated. One of the things that stood out to me was racism and racial, and I'm reading this from the Wikipedia. Racism and racial discrimination are often used to describe discrimination on an ethnic or cultural basis, independent of whether these differences are described as racial. According to the United Nations Convention, there is no distinction between the terms racial discrimination and ethnic discrimination, and superiority based on racial differentiation is scientifically false, morally condemnable, socially unjust and dangerous, and there is no justification for racial discrimination in theory or in practice anywhere. And I kind of agree along those lines. So we have Blair Adams with the Black Student Union and Jordan. How are you two doing today?
Great.
Good.
So how long have you, what is the Black Student Union? How long have you been involved? What is it about? Give us a rundown.
I've been involved with the Black Student Union. I joined about 2 years ago, and then last year I was the vice president, and this year actually the president. So the Black Student Union at Lane has been established, I think, almost since the 70s. It's been there for a while. Sometimes it's less active, sometimes more. This is definitely a more active year that we've been getting into. We've been really trying to remain visible and do community activities, not just on campus.
Okay.
And Jordan was just a member for a couple of years. You don't actually have to be a student at Lane to be a member,
Okay.
but you do have to be a student to hold office or take place in activities, use the student fee.
So let's start out with what prompted you or motivated you to get involved with the Black Student Union?
I grew up in Troy, Montana, and it tended to
Troy,
be...
Montana. Is that where they have that testicle festival or whatever? Or?
No, that would be Eastern Montana. And Troy, Montana is about 2 hours from Canada in the very northwestern corner.
But they do have something similar to goes on there.
No.
Okay,
we could do a whole show just about that.
We could do a whole show on that. I just recently heard about the testicle festival, so I thought I would bring
that
that
is
up.
not our claim to fame.
I just want to make sure
if
you...
we have one.
Okay. All right.
But I grew up there, and I was one of the only people of color in the actual town about 1,000.
Small town then.
Very small.
Okay.
And it was kind of turbulent at times. And coming to Lane and moving back to Oregon, I saw just the posters for it, and I got involved. And it's a very open group, and it's just a great place to. Sometimes it's not even about identifying as a certain a person of color or anything. It's just being able to meet people and have a safe space to talk about issues. So
about race issues, though.
Not just about race issues, but just issues you have in your community, whether that be a community based on past experience, heritage, color, or just troubles you're having in school. I mean, just having friends and meetings someplace.
There are a lot of groups that are along those lines. I mean, they meet for coffee every Thursday, and they discuss different things, stuff like that. Why call it the Black Student Union? I mean, the name in and of itself, in my perspective, in my opinion, it's racist.
Well, the name, the Black Student Union, there also are other identifying groups. Like you said, there's groups to just meet, and then there's other we call them identifiable clubs. The Black Student Union was created for a safe space for people who either identified as part of the Black community or people who wanted to learn more about, I wouldn't say just Black history, but just issues facing community. It was created for that space just for someone to be able to go and have an emphasis on that. Not an exclusion or an inclusion, but an emphasis, an overtone.
Okay, well, it seems like, to me, it seems like you're trying to be somewhat politically correct in the offering of, our door's always open. It's open to everybody. But the title in and of itself excludes, it excludes on a subconscious level an entire group of people. And so instead of saying, hey, this is a student union that is made up of all races, creeds, we don't discriminate, come join, we'll sit and have coffee and cocoa and we'll discuss our life. No, we've got the Black Student Union. We're going to put that in the title. And so, it's going to be tailored to Black students or Black history, or I don't even like using those terms because I think those terms are offensive and racist. And I think we as a society, we're so accustomed to using those terms that we're sitting here, we're speaking out against race. We're saying race is wrong, discrimination is wrong, and segregation is wrong, and yet we do that in our speech. And we do that in how we label things and how we talk about each other and how we entitle our groups and how we, don't you see that? Or that doesn't.
No, I do, but I know you're taking about even using the words black or white, but sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's a joke.
Yeah, but, and the first thing that you say about someone when trying to describe someone or say, oh, do you know Joe? He's that. It shouldn't be about the color of their skin, but at the same time, if someone takes...
Well, let's take it a step further. What if somebody said, Jordan, I'm going to use you an example. What Jordan, when I said, who is Jordan, his response was, well, I am a white heterosexual male. Why would he describe himself as white? And why would he have to or feel the need to describe his sexual orientation? And the reason why I go that way is because I think that it applies, what I'm trying to get to is it applies not only to race descriptives, but also in terms of sex descriptives. You have some men out there, or women out there, they refer to themselves as, you know, I am a gay male or a gay female, or I am a homosexual, something along those lines. Why do we have to, as a society, why do we refer to each other? We do that so commonly now. We just kind of spit that out, and nobody even blinks an eye at it. But to me, the moment I hear somebody say, you know, I'm a black male, or I am a black female, or well, you rarely hear people saying they're a white male or white female. I mean, I think that that's a racially charged statement, and I think that it's wrong.
Well, you bring up a point that I've wondered about, which is using like the media. When you watch the news and a crime has been committed, they say if someone robbed a convenience store, the male was 5'4", whatever, says they describe him like that. And always people are to assume that that person is white. Only when they do not describe the color of the person's skin is when they are not white. I've always wondered why, when you're describing someone, oh, he's this, he's that, or she's this, she's that. If they're white, part of the dominant group, it doesn't even have to do with how we think of color or who we think of people as color, but who's the dominant group. And I want to just say majority, because
so you're saying if we were in a country like, well, me and Theron, we've traveled to India. We've been to India a few times. I mean, when we show up there, I mean, we are very white, light-skinned males. And when we go to India, we stand out like a sore thumb. So if we were to commit a crime while in India, and it was going to be on the news, they would probably be very quick to point out, these are two white guys.
Your difference, because as a minority or as one of the fewer people, I mean, I'm sure that instead of describing you as one of the dominant group, they would point out your differences first from what they're normally describing and their
So do you think it's
dominance.
wrong to use those terms in law enforcement?
I think it's strange. I don't want to say it's totally wrong, but honestly, it raises a flag in my mind. I feel like it automatically brands a difference upon someone. Kind of going out of your way to put in that extra describing word, it points that they are not the dominant group. It does seem like it.
See, for me, I mean, as much as I don't like the terms black, white, and all the other stuff, and I wouldn't use them on day-to-day communication, I think when it comes to law enforcement,
you need to be able to
describe the perpetrator.
No,
I will
looking from law enforcement, I was mostly looking at media.
I was going to say the media. I would draw the line at the media. The media has no business given the details in terms of that. I think it's, unless they are putting out an alert. Hey, look for this person so we can find him, so we can arrest them.
Yeah, and those are two separate things. When you're just talking about a story or someone who's already been apprehended.
Trayvon Martin case.
Yeah, describing the race of the person and having to put in that emphasis on there, I believe creates a dissonance between people. Maybe within that community, and maybe within like another community, almost feeling when they put that extra emphasis on there, it creates connotations in their mind, whether it be positive or negative.
So it is so I mean, in a way, you kind of agree with me in the aspect of how we are using the terms amongst each other. Society uses the terms, does in a way, prick that concept of race.
But it's just, it's a descriptive term. It's not, okay, so what if
so the term itself isn't racist.
Okay, so what if the guy robbed the store?
Yeah, you just couldn't say the brown person or the tan
But I mean, what if he had just one arm? See, that's going to be...
You're going to say the guy with one arm robbed the store.
Right. So
there's not race. It's not really a racially charged thing when you're doing
I don't think of it as being
okay, but what I can't figure out, and like I said, in terms of crime, I can wrap my brain around understanding why the descriptive needs to be there. What I don't understand or grasp is why does it need to be there in standard everyday speech? When retired police officer, and we met for the entire year, and he always bought me breakfast, and I love the guy. I built a relationship with the guy. I thought he was a really great guy. He always bought me breakfast, and I would always argue with him about buying breakfast. And finally, after about 8 months, I finally said, why is it you never let me buy breakfast? And he says, Jake, he says, I've been trying to show you something. I said, what's that? And he says, you're a giver. He says, but you can't receive. You can't take. He says, you got a problem with that. And it was like one of those epiphany things that went off in my brain. It was like, wow, I didn't realize that. It's really easy for me to pull out my wallet and take care of somebody, but when somebody's trying to help me, then I don't do that. So that was an issue. Okay, so how do you like that story? I mean, it's a good story, right? Does it matter whether the guy was black or white?
No.
Not at all.
It doesn't, right? It has
No.
absolutely no bearing on the story.
No.
Okay, guy was black, guy 6 foot tall black guy, a really good friend of mine. But I mean, the bottom line is, I tell that story to people, and I've heard people go, well, "Oh, I didn't realize he was black." I'm like, I don't understand why that mattered or why that was part. I'll give you another example. Okay, I set up. I owned a cleaning business, commercial cleaning business. I did it for about 15 years, and we had numerous employees over the course of that time. And I had a couple guys. Actually, there's probably about 5 of them that were really hard workers, did a great job that thing. And we all decided we were going to do these jobs. We were going to get the money for them, and then we were going to book a fishing trip. And we were going to go sturgeon fishing. And we're going to take a weekend and do it. And it was up in Portland. It was at I believe it was out the Columbia or something like that. And so we scheduled this trip. We booked this trip. We get hotel rooms, and we all had to bunk together in a couple rooms. And that was wrong on so many levels. But anyway, so we got to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning to be at the docks at 5:30 or whenever it was for the boat launch. And so we all walked down there. And finish the story. So we all walked down there, and the guy says, "Oh, I didn't realize one of them was black, the skipper." And I said, "Well, I didn't realize you had to be a certain color in order to fish." Okay, so somebody tried to call in, and I was in the middle of my story, and we didn't take it. So if you did try to call, go ahead and call back. The number's 541-284-7953. I promise you I'll take your call this time, but I didn't. So I mean, the bottom line is, see what I mean about the interruption with the call. It's kind of frustrating, but people want the number, so I get the number. But the bottom line is, okay, it didn't even occur to me, wasn't even in my thought process or pattern when I invited these guys to a sturgeon fishing trip, that the first thing out of the skipper's mouth, he's going to pull me aside and he's going to say, "Well, you didn't tell me one of them was black." And I was a little taken back by it. I was like, what are you talking about? I'm like, "What do you mean? You're talking about Bill?" "Yeah." What's the problem with Bill? He's like, "Well, you didn't tell me." And he's like, I didn't realize that there was a certain skin color that was required in order to fish.
Well, and I think that both of your stories kind of illustrate the problem, the root of the problem that we're kind of trying to get at, is that the default description for a person in the United States especially is white. I mean, it's automatically assumed that a person is white unless stated otherwise.
Okay.
When, the white male is now becoming the actual physical minority in the United States. And I don't believe that, that the white male should be just the default descriptor. That if these descriptors are necessary for one group of individuals, then they should be necessary for every group of individuals.
Okay, but I take issue with the descriptor. Period. I don't care if it's white.
But the descriptor's always going to be there. If the guy's missing an eye or missing an arm. Or
Okay, but you make the assumption that it's always going to be there. My point is this. If we had more organizations like yourselves that simply said, "Listen, these descriptors are not okay. These descriptors are not right. They are morally and ethically wrong. We shouldn't be using them in everyday course. They shouldn't be plastered all over the media. Be done." They wouldn't always be there.
Sure,
it would change.
It would be, the guy with the red hair or
no. You know
guy
what?
with the beard.
If everybody had a thought, then nothing would ever get changed.
We are 1320 AM Info.
So
Sorry about
we
that.
have a commercial. I'm not even aware of it.
Things kind of go weird here sometimes.
How close are we to our commercial?
We got 10 minutes.
Oh, cool. We're good. But see, that's what I'm saying. I mean, in terms of how we go about referring to each other and stuff like that, I think it's just a joke. I think it's an absolute joke. My whole you had asked me in the waiting room. You said, "Do you actually believe some of the things that you've written?" I believe that the whole concept of race is categorically it's absurd. I mean, it's totally illogical. I think that there is. I mean, it's no different than. I mean, you almost took issue with a little bit of what I said in there. I could tell. You're just like, But I mean, the bottom line is this. Members of the KKK suffer from a mental disorder. I mean, would you agree? I mean, they have something mentally wrong with their brain.
In our societal views. I mean...
In our societal views. So in others...
To them, I mean, you ask any group that are doing something, I mean, that we think is wrong, but they think is right, what gives us the right? I'm not saying the KKK
No,
is
it kind of
good.
goes back to that culture.
What it gives us
Yeah,
right. It goes
it's-
back to what we were saying last week in terms of evil,
Exactly.
recognizing and calling evil evil. What is evil?
Right.
I mean,
And
okay.
who creates the standard of evil?
Okay,
and what
well, you
gives
know
them the
what?
right
I'm
to?
pretty sure that we could all agree that female, mutilation is wrong.
Yes.
Genital mutilation is wrong. Okay, but there are some societies, based on your description, what you just said, that see nothing wrong with it. And who are you to say that it's not okay?
But do we know that they see nothing wrong with it?
Yes.
Yes.
We
Yeah,
do,
like in
because-
Indonesia, in Islamic culture, it is a purification ritual.
But
It's
some
something
of the
that women want.
There are, I don't know what statistics you're looking. I'm not saying you're wrong, but I've seen testimonials of women who have actually undergone it. And
Well,
have
don't say
I
us
know
we're
people who
wrong
have.
because we're not. I mean, he's been there. He knows people.
No, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying I've seen testimonials of women who it was forced upon them.
On this show, you can always, try to say that I'm wrong, but I'll always be right. So. But I
think
mean,
that
that's my
it's-
point. If you're going to sit there and say, who are we to say that the KKK members or how they think or how they behave is wrong? I'll use that as an example at every time. Maybe because at some time, yeah, it's very easy to look at something and go, you know what, that's just wrong. It's wrong. You have to be able to call evil evil. And something like that is evil. And I think that the members of the KKK and how they behave, no different than the West Baptist, Westboro.
Westboro.
I'm sorry. The way they go about, homosexuality and their treatment of gays, it's wrong. It's evil.
They have to.
They are
know
the problem.
That it's wrong. I mean, that's not a cultural.
You think it's a
thing.
publicity stunt?
Absolutely, I do. But I think in the other, situations, maybe in the South where the KKK is more prevalent, or other areas where racist groups thrive, there's that cultural thing, where it's an all-white culture, and the kids are brought up with that, racist belief. And so they don't know that it's wrong until they become an adult.
Until
And
they
then
step
and
outside
then-
their door and they meet their views with the rest of the world, and then it's rubber meets the road time.
Right.
So, what were you going to say? You were going to say something.
I was going to say, I disagree with the principles of the KKK, but I think that it's fairly naive to say that just because a group of people doesn't agree with you, that they're, not as intelligent as you, or stupid. Granted, I believe that the KKK is
Did I
stupid
use the
in
word?
this-
Did I say stupid in here at all in any way? I never said
No,
stupid.
well, you said what? A mental disorder?
They suffer from a lapse of brain synapses in their brain.
Yeah, and I
AKA
think that
stupid.
I think that it's fairly naive to say that. I mean, differences in opinion can be misinformation or a lack of information.
How is intelligent thought process acquired?
Through experience, generally.
Through experience, through study,
experience.
through education. Okay? So if you're talking to somebody who in their thought process is still trying to figure out the wheel, are they not stupid?
I wouldn't say that they're stupid. I guess how we think of the word stupid versus ignorant or uneducated about something is different. I feel like someone can be intelligent but be unknowing of something. I think he thinks you're quick to brand the word stupid.
I like the word stupid.
It's a fun word to
Well,
say.
and I think in some things, in under your definition of stupid,
I'm
you
not
can be
calling them
stupid about
I'm not
things
calling
as
them
well.
dumb.
Yeah.
I'm not calling them dumb or lack the ability to learn.
See, so it's a difference of words and how we perceive as vocabulary.
Right.
So it's kind of funny. We all
So he just called me stupid
no,
No,
he
I
didn't.
and I should be offended.
Jordan and I, we always call our cat stupid. Not that we mean that he's dumb. We mean, and people were like, "Oh, that's so stupid." They think we're saying like it's stupid in a more broad sense of the word, and we don't mean that at all. We have a total different vocabulary for the word.
Yeah, dumb is totally different
But
descriptor.
some
I'm not saying
people,
they
when they
lack the
hear the
ability
word
to learn.
stupid, they hear the word dumb. It's how we think
let's
of
say
words.
I would
and
use, and people jump all over me for this because I've used this term occasionally too, but I use it in the actual context of the term, retarded,
Yes.
meaning that they have not learned or they are a slow learner. It takes them
see,
longer. It takes them longer to learn.
Right.
So I'm not talking about.
But that is politically incorrect.
It's
and even
it's
like when
politically
I was
incorrect to
growing
say,
up, the
but
word
it is
dumb.
an actual legit term that is a descriptor of some
But when I was a
people.
kid, we
They are
were
slow learners.
discouraged from saying the word dumb because dumb meant a person who was deaf. Or, I'm sorry, not deaf, but could not
Couldn't
speak.
speak.
Right.
Right.
Dumb. So dumb was different from stupid. So
Well,
if you called somebody dumb,
definitions have changed.
Yes.
a
And
little
the
bit.
connotations we have with words. I mean, the word
But
definition.
KKK members are stupid. I mean, we have at least arrived at that. I mean, obviously they haven't reached the level of intelligence that allows them to recognize their behavior and some of the things they say and some of the things that they do is wrong. It's flawed. It's a flawed thought process, flawed philosophy. Agree?
Yeah, it's flawed in that it's a willing ignorance.
Jordan just KKK members stupid. I just like to clarify.
Willing ignorance.
Willing
I do
ignorance,
like that.
yeah.
A willing ignorance.
And I believe that you may yourself have some willing ignorances. I know I do in some.
Are you calling me
aspects as well.
stupid also?
No,
I'm
I think
calling
we
you
all
maybe
do, though.
willingly ignorant about some things. I mean, for instance, on the topic of race, which is what this conversation was about.
Right.
I'm a white male, white heterosexual male, as you described me at the beginning of the show.
Okay.
And I'm also a member of the Black Student Union at Lane. And I took it upon myself to get involved with that, mostly because of my relationship with Blair, but also because I feel that it's my responsibility to learn as much as I can about things that I have no experience with. I mean, I have no experience with racism. I was from a small town that had, one person of color.
You have no experience with it because you're white?
I don't have the firsthand experience that a person of color would have.
If you're white, does that mean you can't experience racism?
You can, but
not if you're in a community where everybody else is the same color as you.
And I
You
don't
have no
believe-
white experiences.
I don't believe that whites have the same experience with racism that people of color do.
I just hate always using the word racism because I have them as different things. I like saying prejudice,
Okay.
which is more actually being wrong to someone or treating someone differently.
Prejudice is a very
because of-
broad. It's broader for sure.
Well, it's
broader
definitely
because I mean you could
broader.
have a prejudice against people who are overweight.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so when someone says like reverse racism, I like to say prejudice. I
don't like that term, reverse racism.
I don't
I don't either. I think that racism is racism, and I don't care if
Exactly.
it's
I usually
what
use
side
like
it's
the
on.
term prejudice. So I know that Jordan has experienced prejudice hand for certain factors that people did not know until he had let them know. And
such as something related to your body or physical characteristics.
No, my Jewish background.
Okay.
It's not something that you would be readily apparent.
You wouldn't
that you wouldn't
assume just by
assume
looking
by
at
looking
him.
at me.
Right.
But that is, I mean, the Jewish background. That's a big deal. I mean, the Holocaust. I mean,
it's a
was
big deal.
100% race.
Yeah.
Motivated and generated. So I mean,
But still, even as somebody with Jewish background, I have no experience with
no personal
no
experience.
personal experience with the black experience in America or the Latino experience in America.
Okay.
Or anything.
However, and I'm going to make this correlation. However, your history, your family history, involves a pretty big racial situation. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, it does.
But you didn't.
But you didn't
Experience it.
personally experience it.
I didn't personally experience it.
But
And
it
there's
did take place.
It did take place. And there's a key difference between, like, for instance, any prejudice that I would face versus any prejudice that a person of color would face.
Okay, Blair, you are 22, 22 years old. Your history, okay, involves some pretty major racial motivated stuff, but you yourself haven't necessarily experienced that.
I have.
On that level, seriously?
Not on like a level of someone who experienced the Holocaust.
No, but even I
but
mean even in terms of slavery and stuff like that.
not in terms of slavery. You have to first state what you mean by.
I'm
experience
just
prejudice
curious
and-
about what you in your little small town community somehow came to or arrived at in your brain. What conclusion got you there that brought you to the point of, hey, you know what? I'm a person of color. That's a problem for me. I need to talk to other people about it and try to get changed.
It's never been a problem.
Because
me,
it's not even
but
remotely
learning
close.
others.
It's
I
never
mean-
been a problem for you.
It's never been a problem for myself to identify as a person of color. Has it caused problems for me? I wouldn't have to identify as a person of color for it to have caused problems for me. I can say that I am white. I am biracial. I can identify with I identify as biracial. I do not identify as black or as white. I identify as biracial. But if someone chose, like if I chose to identify as white, that does not mean that everyone's going to assume I'm white, because people draw assumptions from how we look, whether we want them to or not. If I'm walking down the street and someone shouts the N-word at me, I can't say, hey, I identify as white. You can't call me that.
Okay, but
I'm not
you
saying
said
it hasn't caused problems
yourself.
for me, but I have never had a problem.
You haven't experienced any of it. I mean, not to the same level in terms of slave stuff like that.
Not to the terms of slavery, but you said, have you ever caused...
You said it hasn't
this
caused you any
experience?
problems.
I said it caused me problems. I said no. I said I have had problems. I have never had any problem identifying as a person of color. It has caused me problems. I myself
Other people have had a problem with the fact that
Other
you are.
people have had problems with me identifying as such and the way I look. I have never had problems myself.
Like
I've always
what?
been proud to
Like
call
what?
myself a person of
Give
color.
me an example.
Okay, let's see. Whole entire school experience. As it's been stated, I was pretty much the only person of color in my school. I was always called racial slurs at almost any, I would say at least twice a day. I was lucky that I was never bullied in a physical sense. And I've always been grateful for that, because I know that many children, whether they identify as LGBTQ or a person of color or have obesity problems.
Oh yeah, kids are cool.
Have been physically bullied. I was lucky to have never been physically bullied, and I always acknowledge that, and I'm always grateful for that. But
you've been called names.
I've not just been called names. I have been.
But kids get called names, don't they?
Yes, but there is a difference when.
I mean, Carrot Top if you're a redhead.
But isn't
Four
there
eyes
a
if you wear
little
glasses.
difference between? I mean, I've always worn glasses too. I guess with the connotation and the power we put behind words, there's a difference.
Is there a
between
difference? Can you
four
explain the
eyes.
difference to a 7-year-old girl who has bright orange hair, that the name that she's being called, Carrot Top, is not the same, and she should be thankful she's not being called...
Is a Carrot Top had the connotations have people made it where people with red hair are stupid and criminals and lazy?
Gingers? I mean, she wants to argue ginger. They have videos, whole videos made up of gingers. They have Kick a Ginger Day. Are you familiar with
I'm
that?
not saying that you can't, like, I don't like hearing experiences because I've never experienced being a redhead.
I know, but
what
my
I'm
point
saying
is
I'm just, and any child who has been called names and bullied like that, it's a stain. It's horrible. And you can't say, well, I've got it worse. You can't. I would never say that because it's not right to compare. Other people can take things more than others. I don't want to say people are more sensitive, but some people feel differently. Like some people, when they hear the N-word, they say, it's just a word. I don't care. Some people, it hurts them deeply.
like
For
calling
me,
somebody stupid.
Yeah, it's all the power and connotation you put behind a word. But for me, my intelligence was like repeatedly questioned. I've always been good at reading. I've always been
By
a
other
great
students or teachers?
Teachers and
Teachers
students.
questioned.
I had finished a book.
And it was based on your race,
Yes, and I
not your
have-
grades.
No, my grades, I've always had good grades. I had finished a book, I had my report turned in, and a teacher turned to me and said, I thought you weren't supposed to be good at writing. I'm like, what are you talking about? My grades have always been good. And she said,
I would say the teacher's got a problem.
Yeah,
there,
exactly.
For sure. I mean, there's something
Hey,
wrong.
folks,
I
we're gonna take a break here. If you guys want to be a part of the program, feel
Give
free
us a
to
call
give us
back.
a call 541-284-7953, and we'll be right back with the Common Sense Show.
DVDs for Vets is asking listeners to donate new or used DVDs for the benefit of military veterans who otherwise cannot easily obtain them on their own. With limited entertainment, vets in rehab can use what many of us take for granted every day. To donate new or used DVDs or to learn more about this worthy cause, please go to DVDs4vets.org. That's DVDs, 4vets.org.
Would you say you're ordinary? To the person who is alive today because you donated blood, to the family whose child received a transfusion to help her recover from an accident, you're extraordinary. Ordinary people, extraordinary gifts. Visit laneblood.org to make an appointment. It's easy and it only takes a few minutes, but the good feeling lasts for a long, long time. Visit laneblood.org, brought to you by Lane Blood Center in association with EARS. laneblood.org.
When you clean out your garage or storage shed, there's a good chance you'll find some hazardous products to dispose of. Paint, pesticides, solvents, and fuels are items you may want to get rid of. They need special handling and disposal. Fortunately, Lane County residents have access to convenient and free hazardous waste disposal services. To make an appointment for disposal or to get more information, just call 682-4120. This message is sponsored by Lane County Public Works in association with Eugene Area Radio Stations. Ears.
Hey, when you're unpacking those new electronics and other gifts this holiday season, remember that Styrofoam is now recyclable at St. Vincent de Paul. Do something nice for the environment. Avoid overfilling your garbage can and start the new year Styrofoam free. Residents can drop off small quantities for free at the St. Vincent de Paul stores on Division Street, Seneca, or Main Street in Springfield. And remember, St. Vincent de Paul is your place to recycle Styrofoam year-round.
This message is brought to you by Lane County Waste Management in association with Ears.
And we are back.
You're listening to the Common Sense Show, and this is Jacob Larson. We're sitting here in the studio with Theron working the board. We've got Blair Adams from the Black Student Union out at LCC, and Jordan, just Jordan. He's not a vice president or anything, but he's sitting here and giving some input too. So yeah, we're talking about race and stuff along those lines. Before the break, Blair was telling us about how she was called names in high school, and it really upset her. And she's very, very disappointed at some people in the world for that, because that's wrong.
It is wrong.
Trust me, it wasn't just the names. But as I was saying, I faced things.
But no, your teacher actually was making assumptions on you based on that.
My teacher made assumptions based on my race, and at first I thought it was my grades because I never, for some reason, thought I'd have that from a teacher. Kids are kids. I knew Mother always said kids are cruel.
Yeah.
Respect it. But my teacher, it kind of took me back a bit because I asked, well, was it not my grade? Like, was it my grades? I knew my grades were good. And then they informed, well, and they didn't, I could tell that they didn't consciously know that what they were saying was what I would view as wrong or what I would view as being hurtful because they're like, oh, well, I just thought that, black people had problems with, like, reading and comprehension, like it was just a hard subject.
Yeah, and that's total BS. Okay, because that isn't. I mean, you and I both know that that's not an indicator of anything.
No.
I mean, that's no different than.
She perceived it as such, and she thought of it as being a cater. And while I know that, of course I know that, just like I know.
Based on her level of intelligence.
Or willing ignorance.
She hadn't quite arrived to the thought process of. She hadn't got there. She was retarded, slow learner.
Yeah, so
You just called your teacher retarded, admit it.
She doesn't work there anymore.
It's okay.
All good.
Well, that's a good thing.
So for me, like, facing it from students was a bit different than facing it from a teacher. And it
Absolutely. You have somebody who is an authority figure and somebody that would normally be used as a mentor along those lines, and they're looking at you and going, no, you're substandard on some level or
then,
inferior.
You have some teachers
so that would be direct to a child.
They were not willing participants, but they stood by and watched and heard some of the things that were said to me, and believe that not stopping it. And I don't mean like just for any teacher who watches bullying and doesn't do anything to stop it. I believe
That's
that
wrong.
they're a willing participant.
Right.
And when they heard these things and they saw these things being said to me and they did nothing, or when they did punishment, they're like, just stop, I believe they're a willing participant. And it sends a message to a kid that they're not worth being protected, just like any child that faces bullying.
And I hear you, but so yeah, you're making the comparison to the bullying. So once again, if the little redheaded child out on the playground,
is being
everybody's
called soulless, and a teacher is laughing along,
and,
that's horrible, and it does traumatize a kid to a level of what? I mean, some person can be called any name in a book, and it doesn't faze them. Some can be called one name, even if it was 4 eyes. And it impacts them because everyone's
kids make fun
different.
Of weight, all
weight,
sorts of stuff, hair,
everything.
cleanliness, clothing.
Yeah, what
down the
brand,
line.
like what brand of backpack you have. I mean, it affects everybody differently. I'm just saying how it affected me personally. I can't say for anybody else. I haven't had their
Okay,
experience.
but you are the president of the Black Student Union, and you're telling everybody here, the thing that motivated you was being called names on the playground and something your teacher said.
No, I never said that was what just motivated me. I had turbulent times in school, and it just wasn't like just what one teacher said. I could sit here for hours and talk about experiences that impacted me. I don't know if you would think that they were worth anything. I don't know if anybody would think they were worth anything, but to me they were.
But they meant something to you.
They impacted me.
And that is what matters.
Whether it was for good or bad. But what motivated me for the Black Student Union was wanting to participate in my campus, and it wasn't just the Black Student Union I was involved with.
Okay.
I joined student government.
Okay.
I joined, I helped out with other clubs like MECHA and the LASA, which is the Lane Association.
Well, listen, I think that, you know, Blair, to be totally honest, every single person on the planet as an individual has things in their past that they have to overcome. They have things challenges that they've come up against. They've met opposition, whether it be kids on the playground, disapproving parents, teachers. I mean, everybody has some sort of baggage that they're carrying. And as an adult, you have to kind of think your way through that and realize, okay, you know what? My mom wasn't necessarily correct, or my dad wasn't necessarily correct when they said, you know, you're going to be a failure all your life or something like that.
But in a way, how have I not overcome it? I don't hate myself. I'm proud of myself. When people belittle others, they're trying to make them feel small about themselves. Even in high school, I never felt wrong or bad about myself.
But as the president of the Black Student Union,
of an organization,
aren't you in a way perpetuating the same problem?
I don't believe so, no.
Your organization's titled the Black Student Union. You the title itself segregates.
And student organizations that try to act against racism are trying to act against a major issue on college campuses and in the United States. Racism is a very present, very real issue for a lot of people in the United States.
We have a caller,
and
guys.
it's not.
Okay, we have a caller. Let's take it. We're going to get back to that.
Hi, you are on the air. Who's this?
Hello?
Hello, who's this? This is Jacob Larson, Common Sense Show.
Oh, hey, this is Jacob from New York. How are you?
Jacob from New York. How are you?
Good. Listening to the show.
Awesome.
Interesting show. Hello to all. So I just wanted to call. You touched on willful ignorance earlier.
Willful ignorance. Now, real quick here, Theron, can they hear what he's saying?
No.
Because they don't have the mic.
They cannot. So throw a
I'm
pair of
gonna
headphones.
I'm going to throw a headphone on these guys and let you. It doesn't plug in.
No. Here, take mine.
Hold on there, Jacob. We got some technical difficulties here. Yeah. So you said we had touched on willful ignorance.
Yeah, it was you were talking about the KKK, and you were saying they're not like dumb, but they're willfully ignorant.
Right.
Essentially. So you were simplifying it down to that. Just a quick analogy, if you have a second.
Okay, go for it.
A second, I don't know. So say after Bin Laden was killed.
Mm-hmm.
Say after that, if all of America simply said, terrorism is over. You know, we've won the war on terror. There's no more terror anymore.
That would be ignorant.
That would be willfully ignorant.
Right.
If we decided to do that. Now say after Jim Crow was defeated, after all of that stuff was taken care of, after that, imagine if we all said, racism is over. We've beaten racism. Post-racist world.
Right, I'm with you. I'm following you so long.
That's willful ignorance as well.
Right.
So by saying there's no more surface racism, we're kind of ignoring a lot of undercurrents.
I don't think that they were saying. I think that they were saying in regards to the KKK, their attitude.
No, I get that. I'm just drawing it to a different line there. I'm just saying that's the form that still kind of exists at large.
Sure, but and I'm not going to argue. I'm not saying that. I'm personally not saying that racism doesn't exist or that there is no such thing as racism in America. What I'm saying is, by the way we're approaching it in regards to our descriptors and how we use it to call each other and stuff like that and how the media portrays it, are we not perpetuating the same problem?
No, I'd say that by saying that you are ignoring issues by simply saying no. I mean, there's nothing there. You know, it's like they're just calling the race card. There can't actually be anything like, you know, to this claim. Like, I think that's what...
Yeah, but my point is, what if there isn't? What if we have Obama as our president, and what if people actually really don't like his policies? But what if it doesn't have anything to do with the color of his skin? Because you and I both know that the color of Obama's skin will not make him a better or worse president. It is an irrelevant factor in the equation. So if somebody sits there and says, I'm sorry, I don't like Obama, and you would assume that it was race-related, wouldn't you be wrong?
Oh no, I don't assume that automatically, not at all. But I mean, there is proof that people do think that way. If you look at Twitter feeds,
but
listen,
that is what people do.
If you look at Twitter feeds, like the spike in racist commentary on Twitter associated with Obama and the N-word.
Okay, but that's got to do with, you know, an accident mentality. Anytime somebody sees an accident, everybody slows down to look and watch. I mean, everybody's just looking for the show.
You can't say that race is always part of everything, but it does exist. It does influence everything.
And once again, I'm not saying it doesn't, but I would like to see some real racism here, not the straw man that's been put up. I mean, Blair sitting here telling me that her teacher questioned her testing or capabilities based on her race, that's racism. That's real. That's a problem.
Absolutely. And people are facing that every day, applying for jobs, applying for mortgages, everything.
But Jacob, you're making really broad general statements here. How do you know for sure people are facing that every day? I mean, are we talking about a ghost here that we see once in a while, or we just think it's there in our minds?
No. We're talking about individual studies taking place on college campuses, etc. With actual data that shows that there is, you know, marginal discrimination. Definitely.
Data done by who, taken
you.
by
I
who?
mean,
What's the control?
There have been studies that show that white men are paid more for the same job than any other group of individuals in the United States, including white women, men and women of color. And the people who are paid the least for the same jobs tend to typically be members of the black community for the exact same job, exact same position that a white male would hold. I mean, you have racism impacting people on a financial level, on a job level, on political and educational levels as well. I mean,
and under those circumstances, I would agree. I would say that's race, that's racism, that's race-driven things. That's an issue. But some of the things that we see on the media, some of the things we see in social settings, I'm sorry, it's not.
But it points to a bigger issue.
But when you live through those kind of experiences where you experience your teacher saying this and like employers saying this, all this kind of stuff, I mean that compounds into something that becomes cultural. I mean, like across the board, it actually does affect everything.
So how would you remedy it?
How would I remedy it?
Well, I have a solution to remedy it. Me as a white male, I'm a member of the Black Student Union.
Just curious, Jacob. Are you? What color are you? What race are you?
I'm white.
You're white. So we have 3 white guys, and we're all going to sit here and we're going to talk about how we're going to remedy race. This is awesome.
Why not?
Well, for instance, I think that it's especially
it's the
white
perception
males
of white males that's askew, I believe.
Yeah,
so.
I think that it is.
Okay, the perception of white males simply because we are the populace?
No, because we're the
dominant race.
We're the dominant group in the United States, or at least politically.
So we should feel bad about
financially. No, we shouldn't feel bad.
We should apologize for that.
No, we should take it upon
pay
ourselves
reparations
to educate ourselves about issues that are present in America that we have remained willingly ignorant, or as you would say, stupid about. For centuries.
But Jordan, I don't believe we've been willingly ignorant.
Have you?
I believe that we've addressed quite a bit over the last 50 years.
Have you personally attended
with Martin Luther?
Have you personally attended any seminars given by civil rights leaders There are several that take place in Eugene every year.
No, absolutely not, and I
why?
probably still wouldn't.
Why?
Why would I?
Why wouldn't
It's
you?
ridiculous. To me, it's
It
ridiculous.
does feed back into the same thing, though. I mean, did racism end with, as you just said, like Martin Luther King? Like, that work is done. Racism's over. Is that essentially what you were
no.
saying?
Of course not. But I'm not going to sit there and run around looking for ghosts.
Well, that's you being willfully ignorant. They're not ghosts. They're real. It's a flesh and blood experience.
Sure, for some people, absolutely. And under those circumstances, you're going to want to look at it and address it and deal with it and make a logical, rational decision. But outside of that, come on. The president is the president is the president. It doesn't really matter what the color of his skin is, and it has absolutely nothing to do with his policy. I would rather sit and talk about Obama's policy rather than whether or not it's racist or racism. Give me a break.
I gotta hop back to work. My lunch break is over. It's been a pleasure.
Hey, it's been a pleasure. I appreciate you calling in.
All right, bye-bye.
There you go.
I mean, so I understand. I mean, it's not that it's just going to, I'm not saying that there's a magic thing where we're just going to automatically snap our fingers and racism's going to disappear. I'm not arguing that at all. I'm not saying that it doesn't exist. My point is the way we go about it, the way we are approaching it, it's absurd. I mean, you want to talk black history? I mean, what the black and white share the same history, folks.
Yes,
they were just on different
history
sides.
is taught in schools?
Let me ask you this question.
A paragraph for slavery, and then everything else is
Okay, but
more white dominated. It's not that the blacks don't have
in
that
the
black
Civil
and
War,
Latinos
we
don't
had the
have,
North and South, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but is it not still our history, the Civil War that took place, the North and South? We don't have South history, so we don't have South Civil War history and North Civil War history. We have the Civil War history.
There's more
so why do
history
we have
involving people of color
black
that
and white history? Why isn't it just
textbooks
history?
refuse to include? Why does everything have to the white be the dominant party in history?
How do you even know what you're saying is true? You're sitting here and you're saying that it's only there's only X amount of history. How do you know that's true? And once again, like I said,
because it's in the textbooks. I mean,
okay, but it's in the textbooks. But once again, it's shared history, folks. It doesn't matter what sides of the fence you sit on. It's shared history.
But the fact is,
how do you sit there and distinguish? Was George Washington your president?
That's
or
not. We're saying that there's not and more.
Is it part of your history or
all
not?
History, yes, it is our history. But why is there not more history that also shows more of people of color history, where maybe they're the dominant group or something?
Why should there be?
Why should it all be white dominated?
Why should there
why
be white or black?
Why should people of color be?
Why shouldn't it just be history? Whatever shows up,
so
whatever there's a market marks.
You want the middle of the number line, which is what everybody wants.
Sure, equal
but right
on both
now,
sides.
we're on the far side of the number line.
According to?
Yeah, to fix it, according to many people, as a person who doesn't get, like in Arizona, you don't.
7 minutes left of the show. You got
people of color aren't being able to be taught like some of their what they consider their history as well. It's all dominated by white men in wigs.
Okay, but can we at least by white men in wigs? I mean, come on here. White men haven't wore wigs in I don't know how long. So why you'd even throw that up there? At least
She's talking about colonial history, which
agree,
is true. They were
colonial times,
white guys in wigs.
Can we at least agree that history is history? And it doesn't really matter what side you're on. History's history.
Here's an example.
It's history, not history. Blair.
No, history is history, but you can include more of it.
Okay, well,
you can choose
I'm not saying we can't include
history,
more.
The winner tells
Why do we
the
have
story.
to choose? What about Irish history? There were Irish people in the United States. What about Spanish conquistadors? Let's have that.
What
history
about the
too.
American Indians?
What about the American Indians?
I said people of color history, not just
but
black
you're
history.
sitting there and you're advocating for people of color or black history. Why can't we have these other histories in there too?
I'm not just advocating
Italian
for black.
Americans.
Yeah, why can't we? Why isn't it just all Western Europe white history? Why is it not these other people, what Irish Americans and Irish Catholics had to go through?
Yeah, but there is that stuff. I've read up on it. That's how I know about some of it.
Yeah, but
Are you
it's
taught
not,
that in
but
high
it's not
school
in this,
and in school?
Right,
Are you taught
exactly.
that?
Exactly.
No, you're not.
So you're talking about changing the history books that are taught in schools and stuff along those lines. They do that every year. Every year they come out with new manuals.
And what's included?
I have no clue. I haven't been to school in 20-some odd years.
Exactly. I mean, but you could go out.
I'm
and
being
read
argumentative for the sake of being argumentative.
Yeah, but you could go out and you could read those books and become informed about this situation. But you're remaining willing.
I read stuff. I read stuff all the time privately on my own. I seek out the information.
Have you read the book, for instance, Black Like Me?
By
I think it was
Tim Wise?
Yeah.
Read any of his books? Have you read any of Tim Wise's books?
I've read some of his articles, but Alice
Oh.
Walker.
Whoa. Black Student Union. Haven't read any books from Tim Wise. Okay, that's cool.
Do
I'll go
I
with
have
that.
to because I'm in the Black Student Union?
willingly. Apparently, I'm willingly ignorant. That's what you're saying, and I find that fascinating.
But I'm saying that you're willingly ignorant because you not only don't go and talk to people.
How
about
do
this
you
issue
know
that
I
feel
don't? How do
strongly.
you know I haven't? You're making an assumption.
You just
I'm sitting here
have,
that I
You
have.
did say you said you didn't like.
Have you ever?
I
gone
don't go to a
listen
seminar. No, I'm not going to go to a
Have
seminar.
you ever listened to a modern civil
I'm not going
rights
to go
speaker?
to pretty much any seminar. I mean, they bore me. I could run the seminar, so until they want me on stage, I'm not going to
But
show
an
up.
example that I would really like to say is Alice Walker talked. She has this article. I wish I had the exact name because I'm not going to say the name wrong. And then is when she was teaching a class, she wanted one book be about a person of color that wrote it because all the books were the classic literature were identified white males. And one of her students exclaimed, "I don't want to read this book. It's not my fault that blacks don't write books." Now, something that points out to is he was under the impression that people of color and black people didn't write books, that there was no literature by them. That's not true. But what he was getting in school was all literature written by white males. Does that mean that there's not literature by people of color?
Of course
no,
not.
it means that the schools are choosing not to have
course
them
not.
read those, not putting that in the curriculum. That's what I'm talking about with shared history. It's not that there weren't those books written by people of color.
They just haven't been included.
It haven't been included.
And that's the issue.
It's not that our history, the Civil War is my history, it's all of our history.
Exactly. And I was going to say, you don't have a separate South Civil War
No,
and a
but
separate North
there
Civil
is
War.
history
Although
that-
Civil War enthusiasts may argue with me on that one, and they may say absolutely there is a
I'm
difference.
not saying that that's not my history. I'm saying that there's more history that could be included.
Well, I wouldn't have a problem with that. I absolutely agree with that part. You want to include more of that in there, sure. But I'm not
Yeah.
going to sit here and say this is White History Month and this is Black History Month. It's going to be History Month.
Yeah.
Okay? I mean, so we're just going to have history, and it's going to include all that
It
stuff.
has to be included
Sure.
first, though.
I would make that argument with you, and I'd say absolutely it's going to be included. But I'm not going to sit here and segregate our history over a color.
I'm not saying that there should actually be with Morgan Freeman got flack for this because he said there should be no Black History Month.
I agree with Morgan Freeman.
People thought that he meant there should be no Black History Month, as in, he doesn't.
It sh- as
but
in-
it
as in
means
it
that
shouldn't
there
be
needs-
included.
Yeah,
That's not what he's saying.
Yeah, he means that every history should include everybody.
Is history. Exactly.
And I see, we have that number line. We want to meet in zero.
Thank you.
And some people trying to fix it from one side of it are trying to go to the whole other side. But the problem is Black History
You
Month.
don't-
If we didn't have Black History Month,
You don't go to
would
the
you
other side.
find any of that
You don't go to
history?
the other side. Of course we would, Blair. You don't go to the other side by
Would you get it
segregating
in
it
high
yourself
school?
and throwing up Black History Month. That's not how you do it. Do we want Jewish History Month? Where's Jewish History Month? Should we have Italian History Month, Spanish History Month, American Indian History Month? Give me a break.
We
This
shouldn't
is our
have to
history.
have those months. They should be included anyways.
This is
in
our history, and it
actual
should be history.
Yeah, but until that's included, you need some awareness. Until in your textbook, you're learning more about internment camps and what Asian Americans had to go through, and Irish Catholics
It's going to
had to go
change
through.
in how we talk to each other, how the news media relays it, how they put out news, stuff along those lines.
And you know what? Student unions like the Black Student Union have
Advocate to change your name. Advocate to change your name. Don't
the Black-
segregate based on your title.
Okay, but student unions and groups like the Black Student Union are the ones that have worked to try to get Black history into schools and to try to get this
And
extra.
I'm not arguing that. I think that's great.
Yeah, but you were arguing.
Take it a step further. Take it a step further. You've arrived there. You've got to that point.
You got 30 seconds,
You can
guys.
take it a step further. Folks, I appreciate you two being on the show, and we may have to pick up.
That was
'cause
a great show.
We
Thanks
have
for
more
coming
to
in.
talk about here. This is the end of our show. If you'd like what you heard today, folks, please sponsor the show. Go to www.buycommonsense.com. Click on the link to the show. Check out the sponsorship section of the site. Thanks for listening. Tune in next week. Same day, same time.